Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, welcome back. This is the Friday Night Live with ST program, and it's the final segment. Wow, can you believe it? It's 20 minutes to 9. And this is the hashtag Men Can Cook My Kitchen edition. And in a moment or two, I'm going to be speaking to Nazir Akoon. Inshallah, we're talking about the Qurbani now, right? We're talking about the different types of uh, meat, and we're going to be talking about cutting of the meat, the process of qurbani, choosing, cutting, cleaning of the sheep, as well as where to find the different types of cuts, right? You get different types of cuts when it comes to all these things. And to talk to us a bit more, Nazir Akun will share with us his experience, and he's bring his wealth of knowledge to the program, inshallah. Nazir Akun, we welcome him to the program.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah for having me in the program.
Assalamu alaikum to you, and yes, thank you for taking the time. Right now, fantastic to have you with us. Now, let's start off firstly with the talking point, right, regarding the process of the Qurban. Right now, we know, yes, obviously, it's a sacrifice, slaughtering of an animal, but break it down for us, right? Once the slaughtering takes place, inshallah, take us through this process of Qurbani.
Okay, so let's start with the slaughtering process first. And it's very, very important the animal be treated with respect and in a humane manner. It mustn't be chained, tied to a pole. Its legs must not be tied and left on the floor. It must be in a shady spot. It must have plenty of fresh water. It must have food that it is used to eating. You can't have a sheep in your yard and you kind of give it lettuce and it doesn't eat lettuce. You can't. As much as possible, you need to keep it simplified, keep to its diet that it's used to having, and very important, a lot of fresh water.
All right. So the importance is to ensure that the animal is, comfortable, that the animal has got enough hydration and is comfortable in its surrounding and eating as well. Right.
Yes, and then also, it's not a pet, so you can't be trying to grab it all the time, having the kids chasing it. It will stress the animal out a lot. The animal loses a lot of body weight as soon as it leaves its environment. In the first day, it loses maybe 5 or 6% of its body weight. As the days go, it loses more body weight. So it's very, very important for you to stress the animal out.
Now, why is that? What are some of the contributing factors to it to just lose that? What contributes to that?
Stress. Those animals are out on the south, so they have minimal human contact. I mean, if a flock of sheep or a herd of cows sees a herdsman once a day, if so, maybe sometimes once a week only. So now suddenly you have so much contact with the animal. So it's not even though it's a domesticated animal, it's not a pet. So human contact with them is minimal. And now here you come now and you have this animal tied up in a cage. It's never been in a cage before. It's in a strange environment. It's not with its own kind anymore. I mean, or sometimes 3 or 4 sheep. And then, when we come to view the sheep, everyone's coming in the pen chasing it. So the animals get stressed out. Especially with the sheep, because sheep are small and people tend to keep them in their backyards.
Right.
So it's very important to rather bring the animal closer to the Qurbani and not keep it for 2 weeks or 10 days, which is the norm. People like to keep the animal for a longer period. If you want to keep an animal for that period, you rather choose an animal that's been domesticated.
Right.
That's used to human contact. Then you can have it in your yard. Then you can play around with it, touch it, let the kids play with it, because that animal is comfortable with that.
Correct. Okay. So there's a number of factors that come into play here. And as Nazir is mentioning, when you're going to view the animal or when you are going to prepare to slaughter the animal, when you are going to, keep the animal in your environment, do not let the animal have stress. And I think you touch on very important points, Nazir. Now talk to us, right? So we've covered the aspect of the comfort of the animal, right? Now take us through, share with us what else you would like to continue.
Okay, so then we look at the second one is that, okay, so this now, when the animal is ready to be slaughtered.
Okay.
It's very important that don't drag the animal like hind legs on the floor. Try and keep it as comfortable as possible, and with the minimal interfering with the animal, minimal pain, causing as minimal pain as possible. Bring the animal to the place of slaughter. Bring it calmly, lay it down, and the person that's slaughtering the animal needs to be confident. If you're not confident, you rather get somebody that has experience to assist you. Because a lot of the times you come across people trying to slaughter a sheep, and the knife is not doing anything. They're trying to slaughter the sheep, and the knife is not going in you. Because the sheep has a lot of thick wool around the neck. That has to be moved so you can get to the skin. Because your knife is not going to cut through the wool. So it's very important that, the person is confident and someone experienced is around them. Okay. And then not dragging the animal. A lot of times you see the people dragging the animal towards the slaughter place, because they don't have the experience, or they have very few people, or they get people off the street to come and help them to skin the animal, and those guys don't have the experience. When you do it at home, you must get experienced people to help you.
Yes, correct.
Not necessarily people from an abattoir, but people that have done this before, that are familiar with animals, that know the process, that know the procedure. So that's very important. And then when we're looking at slaughtering the animal,
okay,
make sure that you hold the animal firmly so it doesn't kick or it doesn't jump around while you're slaughtering it, hurting the animal and hurting the person trying to slaughter it as well.
Okay.
That's the thing that you got to look at. And then we're coming to the slaughter part. Now, how beautiful our gene is that it tells us when you slaughter the animal to make sure that the jugular vein, the air pipe, and esophagus is all you must cut all that. Make sure all that is cut for the animal to be halal. So you need at least 3 of those to be cut. And when the animal bleeds out, all the toxins come out of the animal. Right. So with the heart still pumps. Even though the animal is dead, you've slaughtered it, the heart will still pump for a good few minutes after that.
Yes.
So that's why you must wait for the animal to be cold before you start skinning it.
Okay. Now, at this point, it's not necessarily the where you gotta go and have the animal refrigerated. This is prior to now getting to that where once the animal is slaughtered, you got to leave it for a minute or two, let the blood and everything flow out, then begin with the skinning process. All right. So you've taken us through a few important talking points.
At least 5 minutes. You have to let it bleed for at least 5 minutes, not 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
It's too little. At least 5 minutes.
All right.
So, and before you start skinning it.
Okay.
Then you can start with the skinning process.
All right.
And even with the skinning process, also, you got to have the minimum facilities to be able to hang the animal, because if you skin it on the floor, then the meat becomes dirty. The dust and the blood, the same blood that's been dripping from the animal will come on the blood, so on this meat which you don't want. You must have the facilities to hang it, be able to hang the animal, so while you're skinning it, whatever it is dripping down.
Yes, all of the toxins, as you mentioned, come out of the animal. Even though its heart still pumps for that few minutes, let all of that drain out nicely. Hang the animal up. Have the necessary equipment. Now, talking about the necessary equipment, what people slaughter at home, yes, and I know, back in the day, many people were maybe keeping it on the floor and getting people, just getting some guys off the street, whatever the case is. Have people who are familiar with this, right? Now, take us through this process of skinning of the animal and the necessary equipment. Let's say we are slaughtering at home. What is required? The minimum basic requirement.
Well, the minimum, you need to have a few sharp knives for skinning knives.
Right.
So the skinning knives, the tip is rounded a bit.
Okay.
That's a few skinning knives. A place to hang the sheep, and if meat hooks. If you don't have meat hooks, at least something, some wire that you can tie the animal up, or some rope that you can tie the animal in a way it can be sturdy and not fall from the top.
Okay. Right. So that's right.
From the skinning point of view, I mean, once you start skinning the animal, try not to cut the skin while skinning. So at least the skin must be intact. Because that's another point. Also, is that the Qurbani skin also gets given to the usually to the Darul rooms or to the masjid, who in turn sell the skin and collect the money. But when the skins are damaged, and they don't get paid for it at all. And we were just having a discussion today that the skin market is so down at the moment. So even the intact skins are getting very little money for them. So we need to make sure that all our skins are not damaged when we're skinning the animal. And on the other side, also, you mustn't have when you're skinning it, all the meat must be left on the skin.
Okay.
So it's good for the guys to take their time and do it properly and not rush.
Okay, so when it comes to the skinning of the animal, there's a number of aspects, that come into play here. As you mentioned, apart from slaughtering and apart from just letting the animal bleed out with all the toxins, even the skinning of the animal, it's a process. And when it comes to the skinning of the animal, the skin not having it damaged, it plays all a different role because there is a market for it. And as you mentioned, it's quite a challenging time right now. We understand, the COVID and the whole situation we're facing right now. All aspects of all markets, be it retail, whatever the case is, everything is facing a downturn. So, maintaining that level where we can keep the skin at its best quality is of importance, right? So take us through now the next step.
Okay, so once the animal is skinned and the insides are all taken out,
right,
you need to get the animal. You need to get the carcass rinsed.
Okay.
The best is to use a mutton cloth and get all the blood off from inside the carcass and whatever dirt is, you get all that off. But while doing this, you must hang the carcass. The carcass must remain hung.
Right.
Preferably not in the sun. In an enclosed area, so where the dust doesn't settle on the carcass. And if you go to a cool place and without the sun, you can let the carcass hang for at least 15 or 20 minutes after that. Then get it washed and cleaned, and then let it hang for another hour or so, and then try and get it into the cold room. So the quicker you get it in the cold room, the better. But it's a bit of a challenge doing it when you're at home, because by the time you get the carcass in the vehicle and get it to the butcher, it takes a bit of time. So you rather let it hang a bit and let it dry out before taking it to the butcher, or wherever you store the carcass from there.
Wherever you're going to transport it to, right? Now the step comes in now with refrigeration, right? Thereafter, obviously, it gets refrigerated. The optimum time for that is about what? Maybe an overnight, or how long would this typically take?
Ideally, for sheep, you need to let it hang for at least 4 or 5 days.
Okay.
And for beef, at least 10 days. But it's a bit of a challenge because with the butchers wanting all the carcasses to be out as soon as possible, so it's a bit of a challenge to get it in that hung for that period of time. But the longer you let it hang, the better, because if it hangs and it firms and the meat gets a bit firm, it's easier to slice and it slices better. Now, a lot of the time you see the meat that the bones are jagged and it's got sharp bones, because when the meat is too soft, it's difficult for the blockman to slice it.
Yes. Okay.
So ideally, the longer it hangs, the better. But maximum of 5 days and 10 for beef, not more than that.
Okay. Now I want to ask about the different types of cuts, right? Let's talk about, because since we're now talking about the meat being, refrigerated. Now, what are the different types of cuts?
So in beef, the hind quarter is where you get most of the meaty, the bigger pieces of meat, the T-bone, the rump steak, the fillet, top side, silver side, all that comes from the hindquarters. So the hindquarter has pieces with more meat on it, which is the one that you braai and you'd use for frying.
Okay.
Whereas the forequarter has pieces with more sinew and more less muscle. So there's a lot of sinew, there's a lot of tendons in the forequarter. But that's a tastier part of the meat is the forequarter, but there's less meat there, so it's more chewy. If prepared properly, the forequarter is much better than the hindquarter, taste-wise.
Okay.
The hindquarter, of course, is the bulk of the meat comes from the hindquarter.
Right.
And the same thing with sheep as well. So your leg roast comes from the hindquarter. The bigger leg roast comes from the hindquarter. Your chops, most of the chops come from the hindquarter end. Then your ribs and your curry pieces come from the forequarter on the sheep.
Okay. So, what is your ideal piece? I mean, Nazir, you obviously well experienced with this. What is your favorite?
The club steak and the briskets. The club steak.
Brisket,
yes.
yes.
The club steak is one of the tastiest meats to eat. It's the same as the T-bone, but it comes from the forequarter of the T-bone. So the T-bone is along the spine of the animal. The one on the hindquarter is the T-bone with the fillet. So that's the more meatier one. But as you come to the forequarter, the T-bone gets smaller, so it becomes a crab steak. So it doesn't have the fillet part to it. The bone is more rounded. That's one of the better cuts to eat. But of course, it's all dependent also what you want to do, what you want it for. If you want it for braai, then the T-bone is nice, the rump steak is nice, the club steak is nice. But if you want it for the pan, then you can use from the hindquarter. And then, of course, the top side and the silver side for biltong and for mince, for polonies, all comes from the top side and the silver side pieces.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the different types of cuts, right? Are there typical challenges when it comes to this cutting for the blockman or for the people in charge at the butcheries, etc.? What are some of the challenges that one could face?
No, there's not many challenges for the blockman. Most of the blockman is the experience, and 90% of the time, the hindquarter is kept for personal use and family, and the forequarter is sent for distribution.
Okay.
So the hindquarter has the meatier pieces, so it's easier for the blockman to slice the hindquarter versus the forequarter.
Okay.
The
Interesting.
Most of the cuts you have to slice them very thin to enjoy it because it's so chewy. So on the forequarter part, like for example the brisket, the whole chunk of brisket gets frozen and then sliced, so you can slice it very thin.
I see.
Same as with the chuck, but mostly the brisket is very popular from the forequarter on the braai.
Right. Now I want to move the attention a bit from like beef. Now, when it comes to like the lamb, right? The different types of cuts when it comes to lamb.
Lamb is very simple. Most of the front is done for curry pieces.
Okay.
And then of course the leg for roast, and your chops and your ribs.
That's it. So simple.
Lamb is very simple. Because the entire forequarter and the neck goes for curry pieces.
Okay.
And then the ribs, the ribs are a bit fatty on the lamb. And if you like the rib on the braai, so you can either keep it whole, or you can slice it, or some people sometimes they even slice it across. So where you get all the slice it thin across and where all the bones, you see all the small rib bones.
Yes.
And you can put that in the braai as well.
Okay, so I'm sure you're going to be having a braai maybe next week or so, eh?
Alhamdulillah, we have a braai at least twice a week.
Oh, alhamdulillah, mashallah. Yes. It's fantastic. I mean, as people love to eat meat, and, it's nice to engage and interact with people. And this is the Men Can Cook segment, where, we interview so many different men folk who are involved in cooking, and we've got chefs, restaurateurs, etc., who, bring their experience to the program. And as you are bringing experience, as it is the time of Eid al-Adha, um, a message for Eid that you'd like to share with the listeners?
And inshallah, it's quite a difficult time at the moment with the situation we're in now. The spirit of Eid is
Mhm.
not there anymore. So I think we all need to make sure that we bring that alive again in our homes. Even with the Eid Salah also, currently we're having small jamaats everywhere. So, and we're not getting to meet all our friends. So it's quite challenging at the moment. So I think it's just very important that we all get our family that's at home with us get it together in time, bring the spirit of Eid alive.
Yeah, definitely. And as you know, many of the guests tonight were mentioning the difficulty of this COVID pandemic and the lockdown situation, level three, whatever the case may be. But yet we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, this beautiful deen of Islam, the momentous occasion, this days of Hajj, Eid al-Adha is here. Let's celebrate, inshallah. Brother Nazir, Jazakallah khair for your time, man. Taking the time tonight to talk to us about the different types of cuts and meat and process of Qurbani. Eid Mubarak to you, your family, and your friends, etc. And have a beautiful day, inshallah. Remember us in your du'as, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah, the same to you also. Inshallah, remember us in your dua, Mubarak to you and all the listeners.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair for your time. Until we chat again, inshallah. Take care.
Inshallah, Amin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Brother Nazir Akoon talking to us about the different types of cuts, the process of Qurbani, how to maintain and keep the animal, comfortable, the importance of all this. There's so many factors that coming into play here. Process of slaughtering, skinning of the animal, etc. Don't just go and get somebody out on the street who doesn't know what they're doing. Get somebody who has got experience, the necessary experience in this regard, who knows what they are doing. And when he mentioned the importance of hanging up the animal so that the blood does come out and the toxins are all out, so there's no contamination with regards to any of the meat being taken out, etc. So many different talking points. But yeah, that brings us up to 9 p.m. on the dot. Alhamdulillah, that's where we leave it for tonight, inshallah. Thank you, our beloved viewers and listeners. Hoping you enjoyed the program as much as I have. And an Eid Mubarak to one and all from me and my team who make it possible there in the studio as well. Jazakallah khair to one and all. Until next week, inshallah, same time, same place on the Friday Night Live program. From me and the rest of the team, Eid Mubarak and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.